Transparency. Well, one person who's been pretty transparent. Joining us now from Ann Arbor, Michigan, is the governor of that state, Rick Snyder. Governor, thank you for being on the show this morning. We have a bunch of really hard questions for you. I'll start with this. Obviously, in 2014, the reporting has been that the GM plant stopped using the Flint water because it was corroding their auto parts. I guess the question everyone's asking is how then would it still be continued to be used in the sinks and pots and pans and water glasses of the people of Flint? And how would you characterize this case? A case of stupidity or corruption? What happened?
Yeah, well, the GM is a different situation. It didn't deal with lead at all. It dealt with chlorine and other questions about their paint process and such. But going to your bigger question, which is the most important question, is there were major failures here. And if you look at it, it was people being much too technical, not having a culture of asking the common sense questions, and then the tone of how things were done. So there are a number of failures there that these people, this was a terrible tragedy. That these people worked for me, and that's why it was important to accept responsibility. And my focus is on fixing this problem, and I've been focused on that very diligently since last October.
So when did you first find out that there was lead in the drinking water in Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, in terms of that's part of the problem here is we actually had outside experts raising the question that people in two of our departments didn't see the issue. They actually came back and said, we don't agree with them. We believe we're okay with respect to lead. And when that first came to light that their conclusions were inaccurate, that was actually September 28th and October 1st, one for each of those departments. And we took action on October 2nd in terms of starting to say, don't drink the water. Here are free filters. Here's activities to help you. Please get a blood test. Here's water tests. Let's reconnect to the Detroit water system. So we've been pursuing these because it's important we take care of the people of Flint. Damage has been done.
So help us understand this question. So you have two agencies in the state of Michigan designed to protect the environmental health of the people of Michigan, saying nothing to see here, move along. You've got the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. that actually has somebody on their staff that does studies, two studies, I believe, that say there's lead in the water. And then the Environmental Protection Agency, regional director, forbids those studies from going public. Why do we now have three environmental agencies basically saying, see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil?
Well, that's a huge bureaucratic problem, and it's part of the problem with culture in government. There are a lot of wonderful people in government.
But you did appoint, though, these two environmental bureaucrats in Michigan, though, didn't you?
Well, let me put it in perspective. The department people weren't, the heads were not being given the right information by the quote-unquote experts, and I use that word with great trial and tribulation because they were considered experts in terms of their background. These are career civil servants. They had strong science, medical backgrounds in terms of their research, but as a practical matter, when you look at it today and you look at their conclusions, I wouldn't call them experts anymore.
Going forward, Governor, it's Tom Brokaw. Going forward, how do you rearrange the state on environmental issues and on health issues so you don't have a repeat of that in other areas, infectious diseases or whatever it happens to be? You need to have a kind of bottom to top up reformation of the early detection procedures and the people who are in charge of that.
Absolutely, Tom. If you look at, I want to bring in third-party experts because, again, this was a violation of the trust of the people of Flint and the people of the state of Michigan. That's a terrible thing. People have been harmed. So this is something that we don't consider just, what one person did. Let's look at the entire cultural background of how people have been operating. Let's get in there and rebuild a culture that understands common sense has to be part of it. Taking care of our citizens needs to be part of it. That's paramount importance when you're talking about the safety of our citizens.
So, Governor, you're shouldering a lot of this, and we've had you on the show a number of times. We think you're a really good man. I'm going to read you from the New York Times this morning. It's pretty searing, and I'd like to ask you to respond. If Flint were rich and mostly white, would Michigan state government have responded more quickly and aggressively to complaints about its lead-polluted water? Is this a case of environmental racism?
Absolutely not. Flint is a place I've been devoted to helping. If you look at all the work we've done in Detroit, Several cities, Detroit, Flint, Pontiac, Saginaw. I've made a focused effort since before I started in office to say we need to work hard to help people that have the greatest need. So we've done a lot in terms of programs there to go help the structurally employed get work. In terms of public safety, we've done a lot. Healthy Michigan was a whole Medicaid expansion. And many of those people getting the greatest benefit are people in places like Flint and such, because they deserve better medical care. So many of these things are actions we've taken. What is so frustrating and makes you so angry about this situation is you have a handful of quote-unquote experts that were career civil service people that made terrible decisions, in my view. And we have to live with the consequences with that. They work for me, so I accept that responsibility, and we're going to fix this problem.
Governor Steve Ratner, speaking of Detroit, you have another big problem on your hands, maybe not a health problem, but also of great importance, which is the Detroit school system, which is on the verge of collapse. Way overcrowded classes, teachers who don't want to teach, no money, and a question of whether the state has done enough to help Detroit in general, but specifically in this case, whether the state has done enough to help the Detroit school system.
Yes, Steve, I appreciate the question. I think you're very familiar with the great work we've done in the city of Detroit with the city government. The next one on topic was the Detroit education across the board. So last year I proposed a plan, and I'm still working on getting implemented, to essentially make a $700 million investment to deal with the historic debt of Detroit public schools, also give them resources to make a transition and do some investments. And the issue there is I need legislative support, and I've asked the legislature to do that, and I want to get that done before we have court intervention in the situation.
I want to ask you just generally, because we're talking about what happened in Flint, the decision that was made to save money because Michigan is so strapped. We talk about what's happening in Detroit right now. Again, a money problem. We've seen what's happened in Detroit over the past 30 years. It's a city that has trouble even keeping its street lights on. Is Detroit, is the state of Michigan at this point, not to sound like John Lindsay, but is it an ungovernable state?
Absolutely not. Actually, we've made tremendous progress statewide, and Detroit is one of the success stories in the country. You're citing old facts, and I invite you to visit Detroit and come see it. Those street lights have come on. The blight is going down. Trash is being picked up. Public safety is improving. And I've got a good partnership working with the mayor of Detroit. Yeah. This is about the public sector doing a lot of good things in Detroit. And unfortunately, we have this terrible tragedy because of some career civil service experts causing trouble there. We're going to address that. We're going to get that behind us and deal with it in the long term, because people have been harmed. Children have been harmed that could be hurt for years and years. I'm not going to treat this as a short-term crisis. This is a commitment to take care of this as long as I'm in office and put procedures in place to take care of these kids as long as they need help, which could be for decades.
So who authorized the switch for the city of Flint to stop buying water from Detroit? Was it the emergency manager at the
Yeah, in terms of the change itself, it was a broader effort in terms of saying they wanted to change their water system to a new water authority. And it was actually voted for by the city council, and it was ratified by the emergency manager. It was a 7-to-1 vote of the city council to leave the Detroit water system. The emergency manager ratified it after they made that vote.
And that was a decision to save money, I think, right, Governor?
Well, again, it would also reduce their cost in some ways, but I believe they wanted their independence, and it was a county-wide decision.
Yeah, it is interesting that, and we've been saying it here, this is a decision that was made by local officials, county officials, state officials. You had the Federal Environmental Protection Agency having evidence that they buried. And of course, somebody's lost their job because of it. This is
when are the people of Flint going to have water?
Yeah,
that they can drink?
I guess that's the best question to finish with.
Yeah, short term, we're making sure they have bottled water and or filters, and we've made an effort with the National Guard. We visited over 30,000 homes. Our estimate was 30,000 homes. We passed that last night. We'll visit another 7,000 homes to work on the short term. Longer term, the big issue is, yeah, we want the water coming out of the tap to be good. Progress is being made in terms of reestablishing corrosive controls. That started December 9th in earnest. But we want to make sure we're careful on that, so extensive testing will be done, and that's something that we need outside experts, the EPA, the city, the county, all of us to come together, but outside experts need to validate that, because I can understand why the citizens of Flint would have high skepticism of government at this point.
Are you going to get that?
Yeah, we absolutely are. We're in the process of making those arrangements now.
So, Governor, this is a question asked, I'll admit, totally in ignorance, but why wouldn't you just in the short run, why wouldn't the people of Flint, Michigan?
We did. We actually made that change. But one of the issues is because of the nature of the lack of corrosive controls, it's going to take some time to build up that protection on, just like it's true of most cities around the country.
Ruin the pipes, okay.
Gosh.
All right.
Disaster.
All right, Governor Rick Snyder, thank you so much. We will, we've always appreciated you talking to us and coming to us when we do go to Detroit to talk about the good things that are happening there. I don't want to overstate the progress that has been made there because, Mika, we've been going there now for years.
We love Detroit.
And have been surprised by a lot of the progress, especially in the center city. So
we'll be back.
Governor, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Morning Joe.